No player probably in the sport's history has needed to be so accounted for on every single possession when they're not touching the ball on either side of the court. I've never seen anything like it.
You have to throw him being 21 out and think of it like you currently have an MVP on your roster. He's playing at an MVP level. Anytime you have a guy who's at an MVP level, you have to attack a championship, in my opinion.
I think if you just guarantee health, Wembanyama is a betting favorite right now to be the greatest basketball player of all time. And some people might laugh at that, but...
Yeah, I don't think anyone would laugh at that, honestly. I think there's probably no basketball fan who engages with the game, at least relatively closely, who would think that that was funny. Because what we're seeing is stuff that we've never seen before. This is Hot Hand Theory. This is a podcast where we talk about the NBA and break things down from an analytical perspective. I'm your co-host XJ. As always, I'm joined by my brilliant co-host Geoff, and we are talking about the most dominant team in the NBA right now, the San Antonio Spurs. Obviously, we're talking about the Spurs, so we're going to start with Devin Vassell. Who else would we start with? No, I'm absolutely kidding. We're going to start with Victor Wembanyama. I am just going to say a couple things because normally, I throw it to Geoff and Geoff steers this ship, but I do want to just say a couple things about Wemby up top. Obviously, this is the guy everyone's talking about. This is the MVP right now through, a very small percentage of the season. And I feel like, Geoff, everybody talks about how dominant Wemby is, but it's not always clear why. Like, obviously he's inconceivably skilled for, the combination of that level of skill and his height, shouldn't be possible. It creates this unfair dynamic of it's like, a high school player playing against junior high school kids. And yes, the fluidity of his movement at his size seems like unnatural or or maybe impossible, whatever it is, all those things that people say about him in terms of his skill and watching him play. But to me, we have to drill down into the details of how his impact actually happens. How does he leverage those things that we're talking about to affect the game in really distorted, disproportionate ways? And to me, there's this domino effect that's caused by things that he is uniquely capable of in the NBA. Just one example would be, you can't let Wembanyama be roaming on the weak side in rim protection help position, because if you do that, that's going to be a minimum of 8 blocks. He's going to get 8 blocks if that's the situation. So immediately he limits opponents' personnel groupings when he's on the court. So for example, the Knicks, would start Josh Hart and teams would put a center on him defensively. Hart would not be able to start against the Spurs. You could not have Victor Wembanyama tagging Josh Hart and then roaming off him on the weak side and just cleaning up every shot. It's just impossible. You can't do it. Another thing, his 2 steps cover the same amount of ground as a normal player's 3 steps. So even if he's 30% less quick, he's covering 50% more ground, which means to my eye, when I watch Wembanyama, he looks quicker and more explosive than even faster, quick twitch players. He looks more explosive, even though he's probably not. It's just because he covers so much ground so quickly. And defensively, you can't ever really comfortably play drop defense against Wembanyama because the big can never guard the ball and the roller when the roller is Wemby, because he will just jump over any big in the league. He's just taller and has a higher reach and wingspan than any big in the league. There's nothing you can do. And that's why this is a hot take, maybe. And I'm just going to throw this in your lap, Geoff. So we didn't talk about this before, but I want to throw it at you. I think, and we haven't seen it yet, we've only seen the Spurs with the roster that they have. De'Aaron Fox has not been healthy with this version of Wembanyama that we've seen early in the season after a summer of training. I think De'Aaron Fox may be the best possible point guard pairing with Wembanyama in the National Basketball Association. Contingent on having sufficient spacing around them, I think that might be the case. And that's really what I want to start. So I'll throw that in your lap, Geoff. What do you think about that?
You really are throwing that in my lap. I'm totally caught off guard. I had so many places I wanted to go with Wemby, but that's so
I
interesting
know.
because the Fox thing is kind of looming for them. And there are so many different aspects of Fox's return that you and I are going to have to talk about. I think Spurs fans are going to like most of them, but one maybe Spurs fans won't like so much. But that's such an interesting perspective. I see where you're going with it, because when you have someone as quick as Fox, someone who can pull up, someone who can get to the basket, he really leverages these strengths that you're talking about of Wemby and make it. And the defense is just put in impossible positions. There really aren't too many rim runners who combine the level of rim pressure that Fox gets with the passing that he has, the ability to throw lobs. It's like he's not as good a lob thrower, a lob threat as like Trae Young is, but he's way more explosive at getting to the basket. So I think I see where you're going with this, and that's gotta be kind of scary for opponents. No, I mean, they're doing all this without De'Aaron Fox, and they're just going to get better when Fox returns. Like, I don't know what the ceiling for this team is, but they've definitely fast forwarded the timeline, right? Like, this is a legitimate contender right now.
Yes, you are picking up what I'm putting down for sure. And that's really where I'm going with it. I think De'Aaron Fox speed and quickness, his burst, his explosiveness puts you in this impossible position where you can't play drop and you can't switch because you can't put your small guard on Wembanyama. You literally have no good options. You have to bring help. And so this brings me to, and I want you to take the conversation from here, but like in my mind, that just brings me to my next thought, which is, do they have the requisite spacing with the rest of their roster to support that kind of combination? And if not, that would severely hamstring how good I think this pairing could actually be in an ideal world. The ideal world being with three other shooters around them.
Yeah, they can put out all shooting lineups with those two. It's not going to be a lot of their lineups, but like
they just won't, because those aren't their best players. In my opinion, right? Like I think they won't do it too much.
I think they like. I mean, I would have used someone. I mean, I know you were joking. I know you kind of like him too, but like I like Vassell.
No, I like Vassell a lot.
Yeah, and I think they do too. Yeah, I mean, and they seem to value what Harrison Barnes brings. I mean, saw Barnes against Toronto last night. He still got it from beyond the arc. He can definitely serve as a spacer, and Wemby can cover for some of his deficiencies at his slightly older age. Before we get to the team building aspect, I just want to say, I want to share my appreciation for something that you brought up when you were talking about Wemby, when you said you were kind of the way you were describing it, you were kind of describing it like he is the bridge between the hoopers and the nerds. Like, and he kind of is, because he's this Jokic-like advanced metrics darling who just, you cannot possibly capture everything he does on a basketball court for your team. But then every single night he's got like he's your favorite hooper highlights where he's doing 360 windmill layups. He had this play tonight that I had to text XJ when it happened, when he got like a long rebound, dribbled behind the back, and then just so casually and pushed it ahead for a layup. He really is just like this hybrid of a hooper and an advanced metrics darling. And this leads me to what I had to say about Wemby the Yama man, as we call him here at High Hand Theory. Would you say it's a hot take, XJ, to say that already he provides more gravity than anybody in the history of the NBA?
You threw history in there. I thought you were going to say in the league right now, which...
Well, Steph Curry is in the league right now.
2016 Steph Curry is not in the league right now, though.
He's not. But I think, and so for folks listening, when you think about gravity, you think about Steph Curry, and you think about shooters like that. You think, and we're going to have a very basic 30 seconds here. It's just when somebody doesn't have the ball, how close attention does the defense have to pay to them? That's what off-ball gravity is. Wemby's gravity is, to me, on a whole different level. Not just because, I mean, he's obviously not a Steph Curry or even like a great, he's a really good shooter relative to his size and to his position. But just on the whole, he's not like, a pure spacer or anything. But he does give you space and gravity. Teams respect him. They're not just going to leave him alone out there. He gives you lob gravity. As XJ was just describing earlier, you leave him alone in the dunker spot, you're dead. You have to have a hand on him when he's in the dunker spot or when he's rolling. So he gives you what, say, a Derek Lively does on the short roll or rolling to the basket when you're a ball handler. But then there's the whole other side of the court. Like XJ was just saying, you have to you see it every single game, every single ball handler, whether when they're pumping and attacking a closeout, they are marking mentally where Wemby is. He absolutely has defensive gravity in a way that you don't see that often. You see it from a Rudy Gobert. You see it from a prime Dwight Howard. He's combining all of these things. I've never seen a player who just every possession on both sides of the court, somebody is accounting for where he is. And it is impossible to track. Absolutely impossible to track with your eyes. Because it's so intuitive. It's so natural to watch where the ball is. But no player probably in the sport's history has needed to be so accounted for on every single possession when they're not touching the ball on either side of the court. I've never seen anything like it.
I think I hear what you're saying now. I think defensively, he is the biggest deterrent in the history of the NBA already now. Like, as far as going to the rim and seeing who's there and saying, oh, forget it, I'm just gonna go back where I came from. I think he's already that. I think as in terms of gravity, when I think of gravity, it's hard for me to think of gravity as a defensive construct, because I think of gravity as like pulling people towards you. And defensively, I don't think he's like pulling people towards him. I think of guys who might do that would be elite offensive rebounders, and Wemby is obviously a great offensive rebounder, but not like the guy who's going to just get every offensive rebound such that defenses need to suck towards him. I disagree with you, actually. I think there is such a thing as defensive gravity in this case. And I think what it is exactly what you were describing with Josh Hart. Like, if you just leave him alone defensively and let him be a help defender, he becomes immediately the most impactful defender in the history of the sport. He is attracting this unique form, and he's bending the offense in a way that I don't think we've ever seen before. Maybe gravity is not the right word, but I don't think it's totally off base here. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think this is actually because this is something I wanted to talk about with Wemby too. And for Spurs fans, I think looking forward, again, I think you and I are both on the same page. These Spurs are contenders. As long as Wembanyama is healthy, they're contenders. He's just that good. I think he's already at the point where you put him on any team and they become at least some level of contender. And these Spurs are good enough that they are there. The difficulty would be for them, in my opinion, with true 5-out teams that actually have 5 shooters on the court. Because this dynamic that we just talked about where, you have Josh Hart, you can put Wemby on him, and then you can let him roam on the weak side and just contest and deter every shot that they could possibly take. Effectively, you can't take any shots at the rim anymore as an offense. Now, when you have 5 shooters on the court and they end up playing like an actual Knicks team that doesn't play Josh Hart, and it's maybe someone like Deuce McBride starting, and now he's on Karl Anthony Towns, and he can't sit by the rim and protect the rim. That's where things may be a little bit more difficult, in my opinion, for the Spurs. And I'm really interested in seeing them play a team like OKC. Obviously, we know OKC is the champion and likely betting money to be the 2-time champion, but at the same time, they just have a roster that poses a lot of challenges that I don't think that we've seen from the teams that the Spurs have played so far. Like, they've played Dallas. It's a ridiculously bad matchup for the Mavericks who play 2 centers and basically at no point in time ever play 5 shooters on the court at once. They played Brooklyn, who puts up a lot of threes, but they're hilariously bad at shooting them. They shot 50 threes, and I think they made like none of them somehow. And we saw them against the Raptors. The Raptors had some success with playing Murray, Boyles, and Mamu at the same time, and that saw some success from the 5-out look. So I think that is going to be a challenge, in my opinion, and I think it does sort of work against some of the gravity idea that you're describing, because now it's like Wembanyama has to go out to those shooters and is not able to sit at the rim and protect it, if you get what I'm saying.
I do get what you're saying. And this to me, I'm gonna speak your language here a little bit, XJ. This to me highlights what a beautiful chess match the NBA has become. Because you know what you just described? You know what that all of a sudden to me makes an enormous offseason acquisition? Luke Kornet. Because let's say you're right. Let's say a team goes 5-out against the Spurs and they give the Spurs a little bit of trouble. And the Spurs can't match it. The Spurs, as we talked about to open the show, maybe they don't have the shooting to match it. Maybe they can't say, okay, we have this alien at center, but we still don't have the requisite shooting to match these fast 5-out lineups. What do? We're just going to scrap it. We're just going to go in a totally different direction and just nuke the offensive glass. And we are going to go double big. We're going to go with Kornet. We're going to slide Wemby to power forward. And all of a sudden, what team, they're going with a totally different approach here. They're going big. What team that can go 5-out to the degree that you're giving a Victor Wembanyama lineup difficulty can turn around and then match a supersized Spurs lineup? That's what the Spurs can turn around and do to you. And that's what Wembanyama's versatility does for your team. You can just say, oh, we might be overmatched here. You know what? We're just going to do something totally different now. And now you have a new problem if you're the opponent.
I love that. That's such a great point. And it makes me like so excited. Obviously, I'm getting ahead of myself, but it really makes me excited for a Spurs Thunder matchup, because the Thunder, I think, are probably the only team that could deal with being undersized and still having 5-out and still be able to score enough and defend enough to come out ahead in that situation. But it'll be really interesting to see. I'm curious what you think about this, Geoff, because the Spurs are really fun, exciting to watch. I think there's something that is not just Wemby, and obviously Wemby is again a contender in a box to me. You put him on any team and they're immediately a contender if he plays like this. But there's two things about the Spurs. De'Aaron Fox is coming back, as we alluded to, and they have a lot of non-shooters who are in their rotation. And what I was alluding to earlier, I mean, you mentioned Luke Kornet. Luke Kornet, I think, is a great asset for them, a really amazing pickup. But you're throwing out Stephon Castle, who looks good at times, very turnover prone early, has not gotten that shot ironed out. It may take some time to do so. You have, Keldon Johnson, who shot the ball well this season so far, but not necessarily going to be a great shooter. And then you have Sohan, who obviously is also not going to be a good shooter or a great shooter when he comes back. So, and these are guys that are going to play big minutes in their rotation, I think. So I again, you talked about Harrison Barnes, Devin Vassell. Those are guys that I love around Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox. But how do all of these guys fit together? Do they fit together? And is there something the Spurs can do right now to catapult them from contender to maybe like near top dog status in the West, behind OKC?
So I guess I get to be the jerk here. I guess that's what you're doing to me here. XJ,
I did the segue, so
you did the segue. Look. This team is at least Wemby's 21 years old, a year ahead of schedule. And I don't think anybody would begrudge them for just playing it out and just being like, dude, we have a long runway. Let's see how this goes. Who knows what could happen? Who knows how a player could evolve? What does Dylan Harper become? What does Castle become? Does Sohan have a shooting leap in him? We don't know. We only have so much information. We have nothing. All right.
Sorry for the pod audience.
XJ is not a believer in the Sohan shooting leap. But my point is that I don't think anybody would begrudge them for just standing pat. With that being said, I said the second they won the lottery that they should be aggressive in looking to make a trade. I don't know who to trade. And the reason I don't know is because of what I just said. We only have so much information. But I feel very confident that with Fox returning, at least one of Harper, Castle, or Fox is going to be less valuable than they are today. I think that this is the most valuable that the three of them are all going to be at once. And at least when Fox returns forever. I think that is like almost a fork in the road for them. And this, if we're talking about like more rational logic, who knows how long Wemby stays healthy for? Like, this is one of the greatest. We're already this start. Like he could just win MVP this season. You could have an MVP this season. You kind of have to throw him being 21 out and just treat him like an MVP. And you have an MVP. You have three guards who I think Spurs fans would at least agree that it's unlikely we're going to see a future where Fox, Harper, and Castle are playing 3-guard lineups together with Wemby. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe that looks stupid in a couple of years. Part of me hopes it does. That'd be really cool. But what are the chances of that happening? What are the chances of the three of them all developing together? They all sort of operate best offensively with the ball in their hands. It feels gross to say it because the Spurs, when you think about the Spurs, haven't won a playoff series since 2018, I think. Maybe 2017. Haven't won a playoff series in almost a decade. They're this young, their average age of their core is super young. I know their fans don't want to get thrown right back into the fire of, we're this contender. It's now. I'm not saying it's now or never, but it does feel like specifically for those three players, this would be your best opportunity to sell one of them high and get better fitting pieces and really make a run at this thing these next few years.
You took the words right out of my mouth and directly where I was going. I love what you said. You have to throw him being 21 out and think of it like you currently have an MVP on your roster. That's how I think of it. I don't think of it as like in a normal situation, you would say, he's young. You got a bunch of young guys. They're going to develop. You give them time. You could play it out that way. You could slow play it and see. But to me, you have a guy who's an MVP already. Like this, he's playing at an MVP level. He's 21 years old. I don't care. I just care that his prime, who knows what his prime will look like? I don't even want to think about it, really. Like if I'm a fan of any other NBA team, but if this is not his prime, he's still like at an MVP level. And in that case, anytime you have a guy who's at an MVP level, you have to attack a championship, in my opinion. And so to do that, I don't think keeping all of those guys together, as you described, is probably the way to go. And I do want to get out ahead of this, and that's why I said the thing about De'Aaron Fox at the top, because I think De'Aaron Fox is going to be the one that gets the heat. They're playing really well right now. They seem very dominant. He's going to come back, and they're going to try to mesh all those guys, and I think it's going to lead to a little bit more struggles. And the national media is going to go, well, De'Aaron Fox came back. It was all good before De'Aaron Fox came back. This guy's not a winner. Maybe it's his fault. He's the reason. All of those kinds of narratives are going to start, and I don't think that's the case. I think it's more of a synergistic and fit case, not De'Aaron Fox is not good enough case. And so, we're going to have to establish that very, very soon if the Spurs want to say, not like this is a have your cake and eat it too year and like, hey, maybe we'll develop the young guys and still have a chance to win it. And yeah, we're a year early. I think of it as like, man, I got an MVP on my roster. Let me try to win this now. The guy's making $13 million. And you can easily surround him with another couple of players that work better with him synergistically and give up one of these young guys. And I'm really curious if Spurs fans have made it this far into the video, what you all think about that. Do you hate that? Are you like, no, I want to see this team with Stefan Castle. I want to see this team with Dylan Harper. I want to see those guys develop, and I want to see what they're going to be in 5 years and develop along with Wemby and see this young core, get better together. Or are you thinking, hang on a second, we have this guy. This guy is playing like the best player in the NBA right now. He's devastating defensively, a defensive presence like we've never seen in the history of our league. Offensively, he's gotten so much better. He's not even shooting threes, and he's dominating the league on an offensive end as well through his gravity and all the ways that Geoff described. And hey, let's try to win right now. Let's try to win right now, and then next year, and then next year, and then next year, and maximize his championship window, which could be from age 21 to age 34. I have no idea. And so if I was a Spurs fan, that's how I would feel. But I'm curious how Spurs fans actually feel. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
It's also just important to remember that this isn't overly negative. This isn't negativity regarding any of these one players. At least not me. I don't think XJ is putting a ceiling on any of Harper, Castle, or Fox in terms of what they could do. If the Spurs only had one of those guys, this would be a much more exciting proposition. You just put the ball in Castle's hands, pair him with Wemby, and who knows what that upside could be. But you have to imagine a scenario, like flip the position and imagine a world where a team had a young Dwight Howard and a young Nikola Jokic or something like that, And it's it wouldn't be hating on either one of them to be like, okay, well, we know Jokic and Howard can't play together. We have these two amazing players. Somebody else probably needs one of them more. Maybe we could, while they're still really highly thought of and regarded, flip one of them for a player who could be a wing and could play with Howard and these guards that we have. That there's a lot of sense in that, even if you trade Dwight Howard and he goes to another team and he's great. So I know that Spurs fans are thinking right now, we're just going to trade Castle. He's going to go to another situation and he's going to be amazing and we're going to look stupid. That is possible. But what are the likelihood, if it's Castle, if it's Harper, what is the likelihood that whoever ends up getting traded would have become that player in San Antonio, sharing the court or sharing minutes and role with these other two guys? It's about what they can do on this team when it's fully healthy. And look, again, this is Victor Wembanyama. He's going to be the story of the NBA for the next 10 years. I can absolutely guarantee you if the way this plays out is the Spurs just become this dynasty and all three of Harper, Fox, and Castle are amazing next to Wemby, we will talk about it again. We will revisit it and we will. So it's not going to be a thing where this is a one and done. We're never going to talk about it again. We will revisit this. But I do think it is at the very least, a thought experiment that's worth having. And you need to consider the idea that we could get to April, we could get to May, and this was this fun young team that lost in round one, but did they have to? And is it possible they go into next offseason and they say, man, clearly all three of Harper, Fox, and Castle aren't going to work, but now all of a sudden they're a year older, they're a year closer to getting paid. They're thought of a little bit less. They're regarded a little bit less highly throughout the league, and you can't get as much. This is a chance to get out in front of this and get maximum return for one of them. And yeah, I mean, look, if you're a Spurs fan, you probably are so excited about your team. The last thing you want to think about is these trades. But I do think it's a conversation worth having if you're thinking about maximizing the trajectory of what could very well be the greatest basketball player to ever live. I texted XJ the other day, I think if you just guarantee health, Wembanyama is a betting favorite right now to be the greatest basketball player of all time. And some people might laugh at that. But again, if you take away all the outcomes where he deals with injuries because he's just so tall, and we know what happens to people that tall, this could be the greatest basketball player of all time. And I think it is the responsibility of the organization to make sure that his window is maximized.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would laugh at that, honestly. I think there's probably no basketball fan who engages with the game at least relatively closely who would think that was funny. Because what we're seeing is stuff that we've never seen before at an age. Of course, we've never seen it. So, of course, at this age, we haven't seen it. But you combine those two things and literally anything's possible at this point. There's nothing off the table. So I hope that anybody who hears this thinks about it as this is not a critique of this team. This is a looking at like, hold on a second. This is a real team with a real shot. And this is the way that I and probably we would be thinking about if we're team building. And it's like, okay, we're ahead of schedule here. This team is legit. Wembanyama is obviously what he is, but you add these guys around him, really good fitting players with him. Devin Vassell, again, we talked about Luke Cornett being a really good asset, although he hasn't played yet. Like looking at him being a really well-fitting player, and I believe De'Aaron Fox is going to be an excellent pairing with him. You really have no limits on what this team can be this season. So, and we'll see, and it'll be exciting to see. Even if they don't make any moves, this will be a super fun team to watch, and it'll be extremely exciting. So, any last thoughts before we get out of here, Geoff?
Yeah, I just want to echo those thoughts. If this wasn't a team that could win, or that we thought that could win, the fit would be much less important. It would just be all about tapping into whatever upside Harper, Castle could have, Sohan can have. But I think a team with Wemby can win today, and I don't see why I don't see why you wouldn't try to maximize that. So again, even if you're somebody out there who's like, man, these guys are crazy, like why would they want to trade any of these guys? At the bare minimum, I hope you understand that it's out of respect and excitement for this team and this amazing player, and not like oh man, these young players suck, let's get rid of them. Like that's definitely not where we're coming from.
Yep. I definitely think we qualified it sufficiently. I think our audience is going to be totally understanding of our perspective here. But yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If it's your first time watching Hot Hand Theory, why don't you give us a subscribe, a thumbs up, a comment, anything like that. We love engaging with comments. We actually respond to every single comment that we receive on this YouTube channel in a thoughtful, open-minded way. So drop a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And for Geoff, I am XJ. This has been Hot Hand Theory.